Welcome to Wayward Writers. I'm senior literary agent and author Heather Cashman.
I'm author and writing coach Stephanie Bearce.
And I'm author and writing coach Nicki Jacobsmeyer.
Our mission is to nurture and enrich established writers throughout their publishing journeys.
We welcome all genres, age groups, and publishing paths through video podcasts, online webinars, in-person retreats, and more.
We're here to help you conquer your path.
Welcome to Wayward Writers. We are excited today to do something we've never done before, which is talk about cookbooks. And I actually love cookbooks. I have sold one adult cookbook and I love it. And it was a great experience for me. And I am a believer in cookbooks because I use them all the time. I think it's just a fun process, but also we want to open your minds to all the different ways of writing. And also, hopefully, we have some cookbook writers out there in our audience that this will be useful for.
Yes.
So we are happy to have Sally Ekus with us. And she is a senior literary agent at Jean V. Naggar.
Yes.
Literary agency,
Yep.
which people call JVNLA, by the way. Mm-hmm. So, Nicki, will you tell us more about Sally?
Absolutely. So Sally spearheads the Ekus Group, which is a boutique culinary division specializing in cookbook and lifestyle titles. She represents a wide range of culinary, health, wellness, and lifestyle talent, from first-time cookbook authors to chefs, restaurant owners, professional food writers, bloggers, online creators, and journalists. On the non-culinary side, Sally represents books about caregiving and parenting and is expanding into select other nonfiction genres. From concept to contract, she has brokered over 300 book deals with top publishers including Penguin Random House, HarperCollins, Hachette, Simon & Schuster, and numerous indie publishers. Sally hosts an online community called How to Be a Cookbook Author and writes an amazing Substack newsletter, a bestseller, titled Not So Secret Agent, which we adore. And she loves cooking and conceptualizing new spicy dishes. She gave me a lot of great tips, which she's going to share with us. And she is a mom, a taco lover, and an improviser. So welcome, Sally.
Thank you both so much for having me today. I'm excited to dive in to the cookbook shelf a little bit.
Yeah, I'm so excited. And I'm really grateful I ate before we recorded because I have a feeling that I'll probably be raiding the pantry anyway. This is really unique. Like Heather said, we've never had anyone come and talk about cookbooks, and we're super excited to have you. So can you paint a picture of what the cookbook market actually looks like right now for us, please?
Yeah, I didn't realize how hyper specialized I was until I was talking with other agents, and they were like, "Oh, I would never work on a cookbook." And I was like, wait, why? And there's a lot of components visually, and there's often even more collaborators involved than in some other areas of nonfiction. I don't know any better, so I don't know what I'm missing out on the easefulness side of representing in other genres. I got a taste of it in some of the other titles that I work on. But yeah, the cookbook space is, I think, a reflection of the interest in food in general right now. Food has crossed so many other areas of our social zeitgeist. It's in fashion, it's in merch. It's been such a place to connect. And so working on the cookbook shelf, or as an agent working on cookbooks, I get to see, and I've been doing this now for 17 years, but I grew up in the industry, which we can talk about too. And so I really have gotten to see how the interests globally and nationally around food in all areas of our life have opened up more space on the cookbook shelf to hyper niche down and to find techniques or concepts or stories or lived experiences that maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago wouldn't have been as commercially viable for a publisher to say, okay, from a traditional publishing standpoint, we want to invest in making this book together. And so that's been really excited to first grow up with that awareness and around it, and now work professionally in that space.
Mm-hmm. That's so cool.
Yeah, that's really cool.
And I wonder too, like I think about, I love cookbooks, and yes, I know there's plenty of recipes online and whatnot, and I'm not dissing those, and I use them sometimes, but my favorites are my physical cookbooks.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I mean,
me
don't,
too.
Yeah,
there's
so
a
that's the
difference,
thing.
right?
I stepped into this career now 17 years ago. And around that time is when the food blogger craze was like really ramping up. And so there was this concern around
Sure.
ebooks and around food blogging and content creation online, what was going to happen to cookbooks. And some might have called it a panic, but I like to just ride those emotional waves. That's, I hope, what is part of what makes me a good agent or effective agent.
I bet
And
it is.
so, what we've discovered through now 17 years later is that people are getting their recipes online, but it is not at the expense of still desiring, purchasing, cooking from, and celebrating cookbooks in printed form, which has been awesome. And I'm so here for it because what's happened
Yeah.
really is it's expanded people's interests and audiences. So someone who's sharing recipes online grows this audience, they have this platform, and then a publisher or they're also saying, I want to bring my favorite recipes or recipes that no one's ever seen before together in this extension of my voice and my message and my mission in a book and this printed form. And so they work more symbiotically, which has been a real benefit to have this specialty because I get to continue to really make these printed books.
Good. That's
Plus,
wonderful
cookbooks
news.
are amazing gifts.
Yes.
I love gifting cookbooks because I feel like, especially in the world we live in today, like food is such a comfort item.
Yes.
And like the foods that we grew up with, the foods that like around holidays, I feel like those are things that, I don't know, I feel like they're just like the basic necessities of life.
Yeah. Food is a
And
connector and it helps people
yeah,
gather and share commonalities, share differences, nourish one another, show love. And so
yeah.
you get to do that. And you get to say, oh, I know my friend who loves XYZ food or this type of technique, or they're really
Mhm.
learning about this. And then you gift them a resource and a connection point, and it really, I think, helps people feel heard and celebrated
Yeah.
and feel special. I'm curious though, for both of you, you say you love cookbooks. On average, how many recipes do you cook from your cookbooks?
Oh,
A
like what
lot.
percentage of them?
Yeah.
Or like how often?
And pick one title off the top of your head and how many recipes have you made from that book?
A lot.
Cool.
I usually go through, and if I have a new cookbook, I'll go through it and plan on like at least one
Yeah.
or two meals a week for a while until
Oh,
I like do
amazing.
it because
Okay.
but then I have to say I end up with like maybe 5 that I really
Okay.
love out of that cookbook, and
Yeah.
those are the ones I
Like your
go back
go-to.
to.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that's a pretty high percentage, actually. Thank you for being the exception, because on average, like people who are not maybe super into food or cookbooks like yourself, so maybe outlier population here in this room,
Uh-huh.
on average, people cook 3 recipes from a cookbook.
Really?
That's
Yeah.
so fascinating.
Isn't
But
that?
you drop like $30 on the book.
I
Aren't you going to
know. I
use
know.
it?
So there has to be another reason to be buying, appreciating, taking these books out of the library. I think they can often
Wow.
be their teaching tools, there's time travel, armchair travel reasons.
Right.
No, absolutely. I have one of my gifts for my wedding. It's the one I use it most. It was a dear friend. She got me this bridal cookbook and
That's
she
amazing. Yeah.
pasted our wedding invitation in it.
Oh, I love
And so
that.
every time I open it, it reminds me of 20 years ago. And I think
Yeah.
that's another thing. Now we're doing a macro cookbook and I write in the meal, my boys devoured this, or don't make this again. So it's also like this journaling of like,
Yeah,
we are who
definitely.
we eat, right? But it's
Yeah.
not just like what we're consuming, but like how we cook, and not like you said, like people's voices on
Yeah.
these cooking networks and chefs and stuff. People, it's not just what they're cooking, but it's how they do it and their
Yeah. Oh,
personality.
absolutely.
And it's like this whole experience. And I think that's one of the reasons we go get cookbooks, because we want a new experience on something that we do every day.
Great.
So,
Yeah, change it up a little.
absolutely.
So if people only usually make a few recipes out of a book,
Mhm.
then how much of a cookbook success is actually about the recipes, or how much is about other things like the author's brand or the audience or
Yeah. I
the
mean,
identity
it's
or
all of it. If you only are making 3 recipes, that's the stakes are higher if you're making fewer
right.
recipes, right? If you make one recipe and it doesn't work or you don't like it, you're probably not going to make more. So the stakes are really high for the recipes to be exceptional and well tested and well written and clear.
Yeah.
And there's a couple different points of entry for books. So something might be concept driven. I want to learn about baking with 1 cup of flour and or butter, or I want to learn about the food of one particular country. So that's more concept driven.
Right.
Or I really want a piece of this person's personality that I've been following for a few years and I'm part of their enormous, robust readership or fandom. And so I will subscribe and buy whatever they're sharing next because I just love their XYZ.
So do you see one that
So
does better
interesting.
than the other?
It depends. I mean, it
Okay.
depends on how your craft. That's part of the strategy I think about when I'm reviewing proposals and what I'm looking for. I'm really looking for the platform, the voice, the content. Ideally, all of those things are there. The concept is there, the voice is there, the recipes are great, the platform is big, all of it.
So what are the myths that writers have about cookbooks that you want to just throw in the trash for
So
those
many.
listening?
Oftentimes, it's an evolution from myth to reality that I feel like is the journey somebody goes on to determine whether or not they're going to publish. But if I want to write a book or I want to write a cookbook, everyone's been asking me for this, everyone loves my family recipes, that's all well and good. The question is it for public or is it for a traditional publishing path? And how do we guide somebody through the expectations of what that looks like? Or are you putting together family recipes that are for you and your personal use? And so when it goes from an internal goal to an external demand is usually the point in which I feel like somebody is ready to go from this is like a thing I've always wanted to do, a bucket list item, versus I really understand like what we are collectively crafting here, what the market need is, how to reach my audience and who the audience is for my book. And frankly, I'm already reaching them in some way. That's one component, the myth of just, I've always wanted to do this versus the reality of what it takes. Also, the myth of that it's going to be easy. I don't know if that's an actual myth, but I just like to tell that across the board. Nothing about making a book is easy. It's highly personal, yet also it's a business. And so there's always the balance of those two realities. What else? Oh, that you need to test your recipes and they need to be unique to you. I don't feel like I should have to say that, but I do. There's so many surprises to authors along the way. But I think the more anyone can do their research about what it takes to publish any book, the more prepared they'll be to successfully step into authorship at each part of those responsibilities and expectations.
I can think of a cookbook that I could write, and I don't think anyone would care about it.
There's a couple phrases that I come back to time and time again. And just because you can doesn't mean you should. And that's what I try to dig into. There's tons of really talented cooks or people who are super passionate about food, but it's very different. I'm often asking people like what medium is best for the passion that you have to share and your expertise. And sometimes that medium is a book, and sometimes it's a podcast, and sometimes it's an Instagram channel, and sometimes it's a newsletter, and sometimes it's a bunch of those things. But people often go into it saying they want a book, and then they learn what it takes to make that specific format. And they're like, actually, maybe I'm meant to share this in short reels, or maybe I'm meant to share it in long form YouTube, whatever it might be. And sometimes you'll get really established in one platform, and then that will then build your fluency or readiness to move platform to platform.
That's interesting. So maybe if you want to write a cookbook, you should start out doing one of these other platforms so that you can gain an audience and a following, and then gain your own particular brand.
No matter what, you should have some sort of audience that your expertise is resonating with. If somebody says, I want to write a cookbook, how do I do that? That depends who they are and what point of entry they're at. But a true sort of like novice or newbie to this space, I'd say go to your local bookstore. And first of all, if you've never walked through the doors there, you're going to want to build a relationship with your local bookstore. So that's just, I think, good advice for anyone who wants to dip into publishing. And then take a look at the shelf you think your book should eventually be on. What's on that shelf? Who's there? What's the profile of those authors? Who are the publishers? Pick that book up, look in the acknowledgement section. Who are the agents? How do they like to be queried? What does their list look like? And really start to just dig into orienting yourself to the industry. And if it starts to feel really exciting and you start to see the same names and people and publishers over and over again, that can be a great gut check. Okay, I'm on the path to learning how to do this. If it starts to feel really overwhelming and you want to just go back in your kitchen and cook something great for your friends, great, go do that. You've saved yourself a lot of heartache and time and headache. But before you go out of the store, maybe support one of those authors and throw them $30 because they've worked for probably 2, 3, 4, 5 years on that book that you're holding in your hands.
It's great advice. Great advice. So
maybe I'll just make my own little cookbook on Amazon and do a print on demand.
Absolutely do that. You could
send
absolutely
it to my
buy
kids
it,
for
Heather.
Christmas.
And that's the other thing is like and so again, when I joined the industry, the vibe or stigma around self-publishing was starting to turn because there's like these people who do have massive followings that are like, I want to do this myself. I want to control the process. I want to make more money selling direct. There's a lot of different reasons to decide which path to go down. And self-publishing is a great option, particularly now. And in the food space, there are wonderful people, freelancers, community experts in various points of production of what it takes to put together a cookbook that you can hire to make a beautiful book. And there's some stunning, super successful custom and hybrid published cookbooks now.
That's cool. So how do you evaluate a first-time cookbook author differently from, say, a chef or influencer with established
Well, even chefs
platform?
and influencers are usually first-time authors.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. But what I guess maybe what as far as their platform,
yeah,
as far as, because I know nonfiction, right? Your platform, especially
yes,
cookbook nonfiction, like your platform. I mean, you need that audience has to be there, like already.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
What are some tips, or how is that for you as an agent? Is that a make or break if you see someone that maybe doesn't have as big of a platform? You need to circle back after they've built a bigger audience, or what would you recommend?
Yeah, it depends on what their idea is. I'm an agent that signs people with platforms of all sizes. And I know some agents have a threshold numerically. I need you to have 100,000 followers or 500 or whatever it is. I do sign people of all sort of size platforms. And also I look at the portfolio of somebody's platform. So that might be, if we use the food analogy, it's like a pie. One slice of the pie is social media following, one slice are bylines, one slice are brand relationships, one slice is a newsletter, one slice is relationships to the media, one slice is classes that they teach. So there's this whole pie. And if there's half a pie or 3/4 of a pie, that's great. That's platform. If a project is really concept driven or technique driven and someone has a deep expertise and it's like a hyper niche topic, but their full portfolio of the platform's not there, you can offset a smaller platform with a concept driven pitch, but it still really needs to make sense for that person. Oftentimes, like if someone's pitching me something that's really concept driven and their platform is quote unquote like smaller, if I go to do research on them and there's nothing that populates that connects their name to that topic, it can still be a really hard sell because the concept and that person is not connected in some way. So usually my homework is not just go build a platform, because that's a very vague and overwhelming piece of homework. It's like, all right, let's start with try to land a couple bylines or start in your local community. Where can you pitch local media? Can you do a local TV segment? Like just start building. And it's not that you need 6 of those to then get to the next level. It's that you really want to start thinking about how to build a sort of tail and portfolio of work in that topic. And so it starts one pitch at a time.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Slow building blocks. I feel like that goes with most publishing, but nonfiction
Everything.
Especially.
Yeah,
I mean, like,
absolutely.
There's a direct correlation.
Yeah, it's the long game. And unless your topic is completely trend-based, which is a very different trajectory, pace, and publishing journey in general, if we put a very trend-based topic aside for a minute, it's a long process. So like you've got to start.
Let's be honest though, if fiction authors did the same thing with their platforms, they
Yeah.
would definitely be better off, right?
Yeah. Do you think that
So,
we're moving in that direction for fiction too?
absolutely, I do.
Yeah.
I see it because when I talk to editors, especially like in the romance or romantasy,
Yeah.
they are out there looking for authors who already have a
Yeah.
platform and then trying to bring them into the trade market.
Right.
Whereas I think that yeah, I do think that we're going that way. I think that the more publishers can have less responsibility and less cost and less risk, the
Yeah.
more they're going to
Exactly.
take that
Yeah.
path.
Yeah.
We've seen them do it for the last 50 years. They're not going to stop now.
Right. Do you think in the age of AI and how that's disrupting everything, that's also part of it? Is that for fiction too, the industry is looking for people to come to the table with established communities with that like trust and that
Yeah.
authority in connection with like their humanness is there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I absolutely think that's true.
We are living in an interesting time.
We are.
Yeah.
But
It is.
I was talking to someone about it. It's like when photography came, right? And it was all paint before. And photography became this new thing. Now, granted, photography, there's actually a person making the art, so it's different. But there was
Mhm.
still people that
Yeah.
wanted and like still want the painting.
Yeah.
You know, and like reading is such a relationship that I just, not that I don't have concerns about AI, but people are still going to want to read things written by people. I just,
Yeah.
I can't
I hope
imagine that
so.
ever really going away like the way we're built.
Yes.
But that could be a whole nother episode.
Yeah. Yes.
But
Yes, I could. As I was thinking of that question to both of you, I was like, do I ask this? Because it
no,
can
that's
take us
good.
in a big direction. Yeah.
No, for sure. Speaking of relationships, like, so you've got this huge education ecosystem going with your how to be a cookbook author and not so secret agent. What gap did you see in the industry that totally motivated you to do that, to do those
Well, I
platforms?
think huge is a bit of an overstatement, but I do have a dedicated, loyal, and really just special community. So thank you for acknowledging that. It was two things. Less so there's a gap, and more like I just found myself sharing the same insights individually, one on one, either with my clients or in consults or out and about. And I just literally found myself explaining the same things over and over again. I still do. Still, this has not solved that.
You're like, please see post on date,
Yeah.
da 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 da.
You're like, sometimes you need to hear it from someone. And if you're my
Sure.
client, yes, I might send you a newsletter, but you don't have to read it. I'm happy to talk you through any of this. But it was less like, here's a whole and more, wow, I am willing to share this over and over again. And the fact that this is just a part of my day to day, I'm happy to share this information and be transparent about it, because it's not just this is how it works information that then you get to go do XYZ. Somebody still has to metabolize that information and knowledge and resource in a way that is incredibly effortful for them. There's a lot of work for someone to do with this information, but first they need it. And I was blessed with what I call hyper mentorship right from the jump of my career. Lisa is my mom. She founded the agency. So not only did I grow up and absorb the information via osmosis, but then I had access to everyone she had access to immediately. And I don't take that privilege lightly. And so if I have access to those people, and I'm a connector, what I love about being an agent is I'm a connector. And so if I know someone that would benefit you from knowing them too, and I can make that introduction in a meaningful way and support the success of the industry at large, I for sure am going to do that. And so the newsletter is a place where I share information. I don't paywall any of my content whatsoever. The only pay structure to my Substack readership is that I've started curating what I call like 2.0 skill building sessions. And so it helps curate a virtual room of people that are ready to take that next step in investing in their learning, except anybody that wants access can ask me for it. Like I have equity spots that I give out without any sort of restriction, but it is simply a bit of a friction point to help determine who is ready for that next step. And so I bring in experts from the industry. I bring in somebody who does cookbook design. We had a nerdy conversation about indexes recently, which was freaking fascinating. Like, I don't know anything about indexes. I had all these questions. So I was like, hey, would you come talk to my readers? And it was about cookbooks, but also about like nonfiction indexes in general. And like, there are humans that are indexing these books. And I just thought maybe people who are really interested in how books are made and being a part of publishing would be interested in hearing about that. So it was less so like, why isn't there any information about indexing online? And more, wow, I can't believe I met this person who's indexed some of the most famous cookbooks. I would love to offer people in my community an opportunity to talk to her. And so that's what motivated it all. And then purely logistically speaking, time and capacity. I was succession plan. And then after she retired 3 years ago, I merged our agency with JV in LA. And so I do the same work publicly facing. And now I'm part of an agency where there's a team, a bigger team and more support. And so I have a little bit of theoretically time to work on sharing some of this information. Most of it's like in a panic after hours, but I do, in theory, have a bit more capacity to share this information that I'm constantly just talking through with my clients and with my colleagues. And I love it. Like, I just love it. I don't know. It's the thing that lights me up. So I can't not share it, kind of thing.
That's great. It shows.
It is. It's fun. Okay, which ones should we focus on, Nicki? Because we have 10 minutes.
I know.
What would be most valuable to your listeners, you think?
Knowing about your Substack.
Oh.
I think if we have niche people who are like wanting to go into the nonfiction or cookbook lifestyle.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's the main thing. And I think
I can speak to that a little bit if you want to cut to that moment.
Yeah. And number 15, I think would be huge. About
15? Of a cookbook is fascinating. Cookbooks in their structure are books that you both need to be able to dip in and out of. Like, any page I open to, the recipe should speak to me, or I should learn something or be excited. And you could, for many of the books, particularly now that have a real voice and story and lived experience or history to them, there is an arc and there's an editorial arc to what that book is sharing and how it's being shared. And so if fiction writers are interested in studying the craft of cookbooks, I would take note of the structure of them and use like a couple different like really nerdy tips. One is pick a book and read it from the back to the front. Pick a cookbook and read it from the back to the front, and then read it from the front to the back, or flip back through to see what you notice that is easeful in both directions. And alternatively, what is something that feels really purposeful in the front matter, that, you know, like a lot of cookbooks in front matter, like how to set up your kitchen, what goes in your pantry, some foundational techniques that then are pulled in later on in the recipes. And from a storytelling standpoint, and this is putting on like my improv hat a little bit, we think about the arc of the story. And so planting some seeds around techniques and then calling that back later on in a way that either is super obvious to the reader or is subtly delightful, I just find fascinating. And I think that could translate really well to fiction as well.
That's great.
And the question about resources for your listeners on the nonfiction side, there's a couple things I want to point out on my newsletter in particular. And I don't like, again, nothing is archived, nothing's auto-archived. Like, it is all there and available to anyone that wants to find it. So the pinned post are my proposal guidelines. And the proposal guidelines I wrote in a way that are meant to resonate and be informative and resourceful to anyone writing a nonfiction proposal. So not specific to a cookbook, though there are places in there that talk about testing recipes and visual elements, but really it's the why behind what goes in each section. Why is this book proposal such an essential business plan for you, your idea, and how you're putting this content forward? And so that is a pin post. It's called Proposal Guidelines, and it should be really easy to find. If it's not, you can send me a message. And then if someone's just starting out, there's a post called Where to Begin, which gives some resources about the industry in general. And there's a section all about cookbook publishing and specific resources to dig into. There's some membership organizations that you could check out, listen to some of their previous learning libraries. And then there's also a section for general nonfiction. So there's other people that write on Substack or other newsletters that are really helpful to just orient yourself to the vocabulary of the industry. It's very overwhelming to go back and listen to every single episode about something, and have stuff on in the background. Pick a few posts from the beginning, pick a few from the middle, and pick some recent stuff, because that continuity that somebody who's sharing information about the industry is putting out there, I think really helps paint that like full, robust picture of what it means to work in publishing. And then for people who are interested in cookbook specific stuff, people always pitch me a coffee table cookbook, except I personally just find that a slightly inaccurate package and positioning, because most people, like, you are really saying you want your book to be beautiful, which is fine because a lot of cookbooks are beautiful. And I also want your book to be beautiful, but you don't want it to sit on the coffee table. I think you probably want it in the kitchen, or you want it to be brought from the living room into the kitchen and vice versa. But what you're saying is what most people are saying when they pitch me a coffee table book is they want their book to be full of color, full of like a physical piece that they are really proud to hold and share, and can maybe merch next to some fancy glasses. But so I wrote about that because these are you're like laughing, but these are the things that
I'm
are
only laughing because I know it's true, because you can't make this up. We talked about this earlier. Fact is stranger than fiction.
Totally.
Every day.
Right. Yeah.
And I just think, like, I'm sitting there, what is like, as a reader,
right,
what is a coffee table cookbook? Like, I wouldn't even know.
So an actual coffee table cookbook is usually like oversized. It's incredibly expensive to produce. It probably sells a lot less copies than you want your book to sell.
Yeah, because it's expensive. I have coffee, but I mean, they're beautiful, but I don't take them in my kitchen.
Right.
Because they're too precious to get.
That's correct. So when somebody pitches me a coffee table book, I'm like, I try to ask clarifying questions that dig into what do they really want? What is the format they want? What's the process they want to go through? How do they want their book to be received, used, bought? Where do they imagine it being sold? Those are the clarifying questions. There's a whole post about it.
So all the things you need to know.
Yes.
Go to Not So Secret Agent.
Maybe not all the things, but some questions to eventually ask yourself.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here. I want to wrap up just with one last question. Or do you think we can do the lightning round?
Yeah, we can do the lightning round.
Okay.
I don't know what the lightning round is, but I'm down for it, whatever it is.
What's your last question? I'm curious which question you're going to ask.
I was going to ask, I love this question. What cookbook changed how you think about food or storytelling?
Ooh.
Like, do you have a cookbook that changed the way you think about food?
All of them. What I will say, which is a terrible answer, but what I will say are two things that come to mind. One is like incredibly naive, which is that very early on in my career, I had the tremendous honor of working with Joe Yonan, who is the food editor of the Washington Post, on his first couple books. And he was one of the very first proposals that we were pitching out. And he wrote this essay about killing a chicken and how it changed his understanding and relationship to everything about his world and eating. And at the time, I was very green in my career and my relationship to even understanding like food in my life. And I just walked through the world without any connection to consumption. And working on that proposal completely opened my eyes and changed everything about everything. And so that was the very first thing that came into my mind when you asked that. And then years later, also on the path of celebrating plants more in my life, I worked on a project called The Wicked Healthy Kitchen, which was by Chad and Derek Sarno with a writer, Dave Joachim. And they are these incredibly talented vegan chefs that do like corporate consulting for really prominent brands. At the time, it was Whole Foods on a corporate level. And they taught me a mushroom pressing technique that transformed how I thought about vegetables. Like it transformed how I can cook mushrooms specifically. Like that technique changed how I cook in the kitchen. And then it opened my eyes to just the transformative process of technique in general and how I looked at vegetables. And it was like life-changing for me and still is. So those are the first two things that I initially thought of, although every project I work on teaches me so much.
All right. How about the lightning round?
Yeah.
Okay, here we go.
Okay, so this is like super quick, just like few words.
Okay.
What's your favorite taco?
Oh my gosh. Oh, my favorite taco is made by my dear friend Neftali Duran, and it's a cochinita pibil taco, which originates from the Yucatan. And it is full of flavor and drippiness, and also is often traditionally served with a pickled red onion. So it adds like a tartness or like a, yeah, brightness that cuts through the kind of fatty sauciness. And I can taste it right now in my mouth, and it is so good. And if you ever find a cochinita pibil taco on a menu somewhere, it's not a common taco to have on menus. So if you see one, you should order it.
Yum.
All right.
Cookbook you gift most often?
There is not a cookbook I gift most often. I pride myself on trying to get to know what somebody would feel like heard and seen in receiving. And then I try to nail their personality in the cookbook gift. So it's a hyper personalized gifting experience over here.
Very cool.
What is the trend you're tired of seeing?
Like in general or with cookbooks?
In general.
Oh my gosh. I don't know. I'm not a very I keep track of trends professionally to some extent, but I don't consider myself very cool. So the moment I like get word of a trend, I think it's usually over. So I'm just hoping that anything I'm tired of is already on its way out. I don't know.
That's good.
Most underrated kitchen tool?
My tortilla press then, because I love tacos and you can use a tortilla press for a bunch of different things and also for making taco shells.
Perfect.
Advice you'd tattoo on every aspiring author?
Right, not rushed.
I love that. That's
Perfect.
great.
Sally,
great way
thank
to
you
end.
so much for being with us. This was super fun
you.
and tasty.
Thank you
Yes.
so much for having me. What a delightful conversation. And thanks for letting me share a little window into the cookbook shelf.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Wayward Writers.
Let's connect. Find us at waywardwriters.com, X, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook.
See you next time. Conquer your path.